Welcome, everyone. Hello. I'm Alexa Dawson, your Folk Alliance Region Midwest president, and I am very honored to be facilitating a conversation today that I titled Musicians to the Front Lines. Is that what it is? Music to the Front Lines. And I'm just really excited to be talking today to these folks in this room, just because we have a wealth of experience and knowledge. And I really hope that everyone will have something to take home with them today from this conversation. So we decided instead of lengthy bios that I was just going to kind of say everyone's names and we will let folks jump in. I want to start with Reggie Harris. Most of you on this call know who Reggie is, but Reggie, would you please introduce yourself? Oh, you got to unmute first. Hold on. Hold on, Reggie. Wait. There you go.
Got it. Thank you. So it's always about the muting.
Yes, it is.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm Reggie Harris. I am a musician, educator, lecturer. I'm wearing many hats, and today I'm happy to be wearing the hat that is very close to my heart, thinking about all of the young children who were part of the civil rights movement. I was a young child in Philadelphia when the movement was rising up all around me. And that really has informed my career as a musician. I do a lot of shows for school kids and at universities, but I also perform a number of theme oriented performances for general audiences from kindergarten to the grave. And I'm happy to be here to talk about something that's very near and dear to my heart, which is using music to make social change. And in particular, to represent the lessons that we have learned about the power of music. So I'm here representing all of those musicians who, following in the footsteps of people like Pete Seeger and Bernice Johnson Reagan, and all of those amazing folks, many of whom nameless folks who surrounded me as a child. My family was part of the Black migration, settling in Philadelphia, and I was privileged to be in those church audiences and in those community audiences, singing those songs that helped change the world.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Next, I want to call on Liz Stookey-Sunde, sorry, my friend from Music to Life. Liz, can you unmute and hop on here and tell us about yourself?
Yeah, hi everybody. So good to be here. And, Reggie, great to see you again. And Sadie, great to meet you and to see all these faces. So gosh, I sort of, after that introduction, Reggie, I sort of feel like we're Music to Life, was sort of founded as a bridge into kind of next generation musicians in all the ways that you're talking about, Reggie. And so I founded Music to Life with myself, with my dad, who some of you might know as Paul Stookey of the folk trio Peter, Paul, and Mary. And we founded Music to Life with the express intent of supporting kind of current and next generation musicians who are, engaging in exactly the kind of work that Reggie described, as educators, as activists, as facilitators, as healers, as bridge builders, all of those things. And we chose to do it in a way that is very, empowerment's a word that's used a lot, but we chose to do it in a way that really speaks to, frankly, the need for change makers in this world to be supported. And so we've chosen to go about this saying that change makers with a good idea are actually social impact entrepreneurs. And so every musician that comes in our door is sort of treated like that. Like, how do we take your idea and turn it into something that not only returns genuine kind of measurable value to the community, whether it's in a school, in an opioid clinic, in a juvenile detention facility, whatever it might, you bring us your ideas and we want to turn those ideas into that kind of a program. Therefore, given its measurable value in that arena that you're operating in should return value to you as the initiator, as the innovator, as the creative behind that. And so that's what we do at Music's Life. We work with a network of 400 growing every month artists all over the country, and we offer training programs that sort of get you and get your head around that idea of making a living while making change. And so we connect you with those skills. We connect you with a network of artists that are like-minded and of that kind of mission-driven alignment. And and that is our work, and it is absolutely centered on artist well-being and artists and elevating, kind of recognizing artists as true community players, to be tapped certainly when there are crises, but also when communities are faced with various challenges. And how can musicians be strategic assets in a community and helping solve problems. So that's us. Thanks.
Thank you, Liz. Yes, I love Music to Life. Thank you for everything you do. We're going to talk more in a moment, but I want to introduce our third and last guest panelist here, Sadie Gustafson-Zook. Please introduce yourself for us.
Hi, everybody. My name's Sadie. I use she, they pronouns, and I am a songwriter and a musician. And when Alexa asked me to join this, I responded and said, sure, but why? And I think that in thinking of it a bit more, I grew up Mennonite in a pretty progressive Mennonite community in Goshen, Indiana. And I feel like there was my mom was a pastor, and there was this overarching sentiment of like, everything you do should be not just for yourself it should be for the betterment of the people around you. And that for a while, I feel like really hung over my head as I wanted to be an artist. And I was like, okay, but I want to do this like thing that's for me and it's selfish or whatever. And the longer that I do this job, the more I remember that it impacts people beyond what I can even imagine. And that music, whether it's for me or from other people, like has so much power and is a threat to the establishment. So there are great ways of making change just through doing things that seem small and that seem insignificant. But if you are doing it on behalf of the people in your community, trying to I guess I want to be here as somebody who's like, I don't necessarily think of myself as an activist, but I do think of myself as driven by my morals and wanting to have an integrated musician identity and also just personal identity. And so, yeah, I'm excited to see where this conversation goes, and I'm excited to be here.
Thank you for being here. And yes, I think I thought of you. The great thing about this conversation in the folk music industry is that there are so many people who could be on this screen right now. Like there's so many people who could be talking about these issues right now. And I really did just kind of throw it out there to you, Sadie, because I think that I remembered something about there being singing in a rotunda somewhere. And that touched me from where I was, from where I was looking on my screen, to what you were doing. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, I can talk about that. So when a few months after October 7th, there was a group called Mennonite Action that kind of emerged that was trying to bring a Christian perspective that's not Christian nationalism to public awareness, trying to be calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. And I was really excited about it because, well, one, someone asked me if I wanted to be on the communication team. So they asked me to do something that wasn't music. And I was like, yes, thank you for remembering that I have other skills. But then also I was just excited because I really like the idea of using the like social structures that we already have in place to be mobilizing people. And so specifically the people that started Mennonite Action used to be Bernie organizers. And they were like, we have this group of people that are all pacifists. They're all peace-minded people, and they're all already in community with each other. They all already know the same songs because they have a book and they've been singing it their whole lives. And we should do an action where we go to DC and we do a hymn sing in the Capitol Rotunda and try to get media attention that way. And so we did. There was a group of 135 of us that were inside, and then there was more than 100 people also outside. And we like just sang hymns until we all got arrested. And it felt very cool to be in a group of people that was like using the skills that we already had to bring awareness to the injustices that we were seeing in the world. And yeah, it was especially cool because like I've never been arrested before. I, didn't go in thinking that I was an activist, but then it made me feel like empowered in my own personal integrity and empowered in like it was a group event. There were people around me. It made me want to do it again. I feel like right now I would be maybe more scared to do it again, but it was really interesting because I just didn't feel as afraid as I expected to, because we were all doing it together. So I think it really spoke to the power of being in community and recognizing that we're all going through these things together. And that anyway, I wrote a song about it, and that's what Alexa heard. I made a video that, because I was running the live stream, I had video footage of the whole thing of me getting arrested, like until I got arrested. So I made a little video that went along with it, and it was really fun to have the song and then also have the footage for directly what I was seeing as I was going through it. But yeah, that's the background.
You said something about the hymn, the book of songs that they, that they all knew together and were singing together. I think we all need a copy of that. So maybe if you get a chance, share a link to that in the chat.
Well, I guess I was just talking about the Mennonite hymnal, but
oh, okay, great.
I mean, there are other
I should get
examples,
one
like
for
people's songs. There are other examples of these songs that it would be powerful if we all knew them.
Right, for sure. I wanted to ask, I had a question for Liz, because as a part of Music to Life, I should tell the audience here that I am a current board member of Music to Life, but I got started as a guest on Brave Troubadours and then as a musician changemaker accelerator academy graduate or student. And so I in my experience with Music to Life, there's a lot of recording and measuring impact. And I think you guys are really, really good at that. And I just, in a time where it's kind of hard for us to know if what we're doing is making any kind of a difference, maybe you could offer some words of encouragement on measuring our impact and how an independent individual artist can kind of look at their little bit of change and see it in a bigger perspective.
Oh, that's such a good question. And yeah, that comes up whenever we say evaluation, right, or outcomes, people's eyes get wide and they think they have to have, I don't know, spreadsheets and, surveys and all kinds of things. And what we say a lot, because artists in our programs bring their individual ideas, right? So we do a lot, and I'm sure you experience this, Alexa, we do a lot of sort of, all right, what is the nature of your program that you're bringing? So for any of you on the call, what is the nature? What is the way that you would like to see things be different if you do this particular thing? Like once this thing is done, what would change look like? Or what would the difference, how would you describe the difference that happened? And then you kind of work backwards from there. And truly it becomes this very personal approach. So I mean, we've worked with artists who are, let's say, I'm thinking about Reggie and his educational settings, and they know they're going to meet with students over, maybe it's one day, but maybe it's like a week or maybe it's 2 weeks. And let's first project out, like in an ideal world, what's different on day 14 that wasn't happening now in my first encounter or my first engagement with whoever it is or whatever it is. And so let me start by just kind of, maybe what it is I'm taking 3 questions, same questions that I'm asking at the beginning And then I'm asking at the end and seeing if the folks that have just kind of engaged with me or gone through this program are now answering those questions differently. Maybe it's as simple as that. Maybe it's, again, this all depends on the population you're working with. If you're working with elementary school kids, maybe it's, I don't know, different kinds of colors or different kinds of animals that they're choosing now. That maybe there's more of maybe you're trying to see if they're any more comfortable with a particular color or animal at the end than they were at the beginning. I mean, I'm just kind of making this up, but I think that the key is to figure out where you are, what your program is, the components of your program, because ultimately by measuring, and so it could be photographs, it could be journaling, it could be a simple survey, at the end. And again, you remember this, Alexa, like measuring is so important because not only do you want to feel and learn from and sort of understand that this has made a difference, but you want to be able to communicate it to others. You want to be able to decide, has this program or engagement or situation, has it done what I wanted it to do? If not, the only way you're going to learn from that is if you have some kind of measure in place, whatever that is. And then can I now package what I've just learned from this in some way and grow it or shop it around or, talk to a funder about it. So I don't know if that's helpful. I mean, it really is individual.
I think
yeah,
kind of a starting point to that, like, how do I even decide what it is that I want to do is all based in values, right? And like
yes,
deciding what your values are and where you want to, where you want to be effective in the world. And that's another area where Music to Life is really effectual, I think, is in helping people to identify their values. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
yeah. Well, and sort of draw from within you the confidence and beauty that you bring as creatives. I'm getting emotional because we recognize it, right? We bring in these beautiful, all of you, these beautiful, beautiful creatives. And what we found is we really needed to spend a solid 2 weeks on just what you're talking about, Alexa, to kind of bubble out the values, bubble out the kind of your value, right? Because there's sort of the values that you hold and that you're kind of trying to manifest in the world. And then there's your own deep-rooted sense of self, of worth, self-esteem, confidence, and we had to spend more time than I thought in building that part of you up, you all as artists, such that you could articulate that in a way that where people would hear you, where they would respect, you would garner some of the respect that you so deserve and so need, and that you could start placing a monetary value on, because I believe in myself, because I hold these values, because I know that if I manifest these values in this particular way, we're going to see some change. Here's why, I am worth something. I mean, you've got to be worth something in here, but here's why I'm worth something now in the world, right? So, that's weird. I just got emotional on that because it's so obvious to us, and it's such a tender moment, right? Those first 2 weeks of like, what is your value and how I know it's a very emotional time because you're also storytelling and all that, but that's part of our academy is we have that, that first 2 times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so helpful to be able to identify, like you said, the worth, and the value of your work in the world. And that kind of brings me to something that I wanted to ask Reggie, with all of your experience and wisdom in this area, how would you suggest that maybe somebody hasn't really identified, where they fit into this, change, and not really sure that anything that they could do would make a difference? Where would you kind of jump off on advising somebody that is just really not really sure what this change making stuff is about?
Well, I think several really important points have been made from both Sadie and from Liz. They really encapsulating the fact the importance of community. often as artists, we come into our desire to perform, as Sadie said, from a very individual perspective. We want something to happen for us. I know when I first started singing and becoming a performer, I'm looking at performers that I admired, people in the world that I aspired to be like, and that put me on a very solo path to experiencing and driving myself toward a vision that was very much about self satisfaction, about self gratification. And for those first early years, I completely forgot about all the things I learned coming from the community that I grew up in. All of those values of accountability and responsibility, all of those coping mechanisms, the way that song embodied our ability to support each other, the way that song created a different sense of comfort and knowledge of ourselves, just kind of went by the wayside, and I kind of launched myself out there, as I think so many people do, in a place that landed me in a very lonely spot. And then I realized that part of that was that I was trying to get away from certain things. I was trying to get away from those hurts and those wounds that came from the oppression in the society in which we grow up. So the first thing that started happening was I returned to those songs largely because I came up with the idea. Kim and I, as I worked in our early years, coming up with a program for students, and it was about the Underground Railroad. And the Underground Railroad was both a remarkable community effort of people who were very different than each other, but who coalesced around the idea that they could change the attitudes of the world about slavery and oppression. And in that, there was a musical component. Well, that musical component led me to reevaluate how important community was and how people were able to build community. Seeing myself back in that light, I began to look for skills that could add to my ability to sing. So one of the first things I did was to go get training from the National Coalition Building Institute. And I expected that they would just give me all kinds of tools to run out there and change the world. And what they did was they said, let's look at you. Let's look at what's happening inside of you. Let's look at where you're wounded. Let's look at where you are broken, and then we'll look at the skills that you have and see how those really combine to be a package that you can offer to the world. So we're talking about years and years and years of using those tools to begin to listen to myself, to assess what my passions were, what message in the world did I want to send, and then what role did I want to play in that? Was I a disruptor, somebody who, like Phil Oakes, wanted to come out and smack people in the face? Or did I want to come out and inform people with education and stories that would give them an opportunity to look at the world as it was and the world as it is and see themselves in it? Did my songs give an opportunity for healing? What was I most comfortable with? Well, to do all of that, I had to do a lot of healing. And so I hear in Liz's process that that's what, they're looking at all of those things and helping artists to begin to understand who they are, because you can't really be effective until you really know who you are and what buttons, early on, people could push my buttons and trigger me and get me off the path. When I began to understand what my background was and what I was dealing with, and to begin to heal some of those hurts, my writing changed, and then my process of being on stage and presenting changed. So I think it's, and then you also have the community to support you. So you're in the mix of people who can sometimes call you out and say, maybe you're not being quite as effective as you are because of things I see in this. So our connection to community, our connection to self, and then connection to an understanding of what is the message you're trying to get across. Um, and then you have to work on the skills of honing those things. So I love this collaboration because it's a multifaceted process that is ongoing. You know, you won't ever get there. You get, you build your skills and you build your awareness and ability, but the world changes. So in that, you're going to have to adapt and shift, using your skills, your material, but also using your personality. I think it's very important to just mention that we all have to learn to live what it is we're singing.
Mm,
And that's probably the last part, to stay consistent and to stay open.
mm. I love that you pointed out that this is a process and that, one season of life might be bringing something different than the last. And those sometimes it's hard to let go of the last season, but yeah, thank you for that reminder. I'm going to go, we are already getting questions. And since it's so connected to what you just said, I'm going to go ahead and and just a reminder, there is a Q&A portion at the end. So you can enter your questions in the chat to Annie, and we will get it. We will make sure that there's time. But since they're already just flowing in, I do want to go ahead and get started with some of those. Annie Bacon says, thank you so much for pointing out the importance of our own healing in the process of creating healing music. I wrote half an album and then realized I needed to heal the wounds I was singing about before I wrote the other half. What a recognition and wisdom in actually following that recognition. Other than therapy, doing lots, are there any other resources that supported you in a healing process, specifically as an artist?
Well, personally, for me, one of the landmark events in my life was a liver transplant in 2008. And there were 13 years of advancing illness throughout that process, from the time I was diagnosed until the time that I fortunately received a liver. And physically, of course, the liver saved my life. But the process of moving toward that moment where I was eligible for a liver was a process of real seeking. I did a lot of therapy. I had all kinds of medical interventions. I had a lot of opportunities through song and through interactions with other musicians, but also with other audiences, to begin to work out some of the conflicts that were in my mind, in my heart, and my body, and then to seek some counseling and also some spiritual guidance to reconcile all of these things that were colliding in me. And then, of course, I had the experience of having a liver taken out of me and a new liver put in, which I realized that illness, because of seeing a number of different elders over the course of years, that my body's dysfunction was because of things that weren't connecting in my being. So when they took that old liver out, my visual was they took all that other stuff as well. So now I can let go of that. And so there was a tremendous, and I've had several illnesses since, and I learned that those opportunities, illness, brokenness, relationship problems, all of those things as artists are opportunities to shift our vision and our perspective, to serve us to be better people. So I look at that. I was a very different artist after the transplant, because I fortunately, from all of those, from friends, from, mentors, from elders, they all gave me something to take out of that experience. And my music had to change because I was different. So I look to that. We look at things in our lives that happen that may be devastating or may be painful. and leaning into those opportunities to be able to reflect them in our music and in our activism is a great opportunity.
What a sacrifice to reach the next level. Thank you for sharing that. Liz, I wanted to turn back to you with something that I think is on all of our minds. Any of us who are doing foundation work or organization work, who have ever gotten an NEA grant are now sort of pardon me, wondering what we're going to do. And I'm just wondering from the level where you are, from the connections that you have, like what is your kind of view of this moment, and what advice would you have for artists? I mean, I think personally relocalizing is like where I like to focus, but what do you think? What are you thinking about all this?
That's an interesting way to put it, relocalizing. That's good. It's sort of, I'm imagining you're saying sort of rethink it, taking another look at right where you are. Is that what you mean by relocalizing? Like,
Absolutely, and
yeah,
less dependence
yeah.
on a national level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was quite the shock for those that aren't aware, when just about a week ago, an email dropped in the box of thousands and thousands of organizations, big and small, that said termination. You know, your NEA grant has been terminated. Now, this is a grant, if you've ever applied for the NEA, where you have to apply a year in advance. So your planning skills, you know, you got to plan a year in advance. So, and apparently people got different stop dates, but the idea was that if you were thinking you were going to get any further money from us after May 31st, we will not be doing that anymore. And so again, so Saturday, so anybody, we very luckily, our last program, you'll all appreciate this, ended on May 27th, ends on May 27th. Somehow we, you know, but for thousands of organizations who had planned for June programming, summer programming, right up until October, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars, they were cut, you know, at the knees, because they did not subscribe to the new NEA guidelines, which apparently are allowable in a grant cycle like this, based on the tiny print down at the bottom that you signed, general GTCs, general terms and conditions, which basically says if you're going to sign this kind of to get this federal money, any time we can reserve the right to take it away, based on all kinds of things that happen at the federal level. So that's just, I just offer that for quick background. And so I've been on calls with the, you know, the Americans for the Arts mobilized pretty quickly, and they had kind of a, you know, a call. You had 5 business days to appeal. 5 business days to appeal the decision. Many organizations did just to show solidarity. But it's a very tricky time. We are now, sorry, I'm sharing sort of, I want to be practical, because Alexa, you're absolutely right. Like, we want to really be thoughtful about kind of what to do, because it certainly could affect any artists that have contracts, right, with organizations that have lost that money. And it's a relocalizing. It's, I think it's a, I love what you said, Reggie, about, by the way, Reggie is on our advisory board, so I just want to put that out there. We're really grateful to have your participation. Thank you. But I think that notion that in every broken window, right, there is the rainbow of glass, or something, like, however we want to say it, like but this is an opportunity to think about new ways to collaborate, to think about new ways to come together and connect, to think about create, and to maybe get in touch with parts of yourself that you hadn't had to think about before, for whatever reason. But unfortunately, I don't have a lot of kind of advice in terms of money making, except that, if anything, the challenges that we're facing have only gotten bigger. And so it's going to take kind of more of us and more creative thinking to kind of come together around them. And so you may very well have more allies around you than you realize, because the ripple effects of this are going to affect both sides of the political spectrum. They are. So actually, now that I've kind of rambled on, I do want to offer that one of the ways we're going to heal is by considering how to bring people across, you know, this bridge of understanding. And so maybe I mean, I've been very, very curious to know who has been affected by these cuts and how they sit in the political kind of spectrum. So
Yeah, I think it is all over the place, and I do think that there's so many like appeals, calls to action, ways to contact your representatives, and things like that. One thing that I find really interesting is like there are a lot of businesses, not artists necessarily, but businesses that are shuttering as a result of, you know, post-pandemic times and now tariffs and whatever else is going on. But I have not seen any artists giving up. Right. I haven't seen any artists, even with us being like the first ones on the chopping block here. I haven't seen anyone saying, well, I'm throwing in the towel. I won't be playing music anymore. And to me, I think that really speaks to the difference, you know, that music is such a human right, a human need, and something that they really can't take away. Reggie?
I am fully in sync with what Liz just said. I also operate in again, back to community. Networking has made my career. Sticking my nose in or answering requests for things that are outside of the zone that I think I want to work. And in the last 3 years, I have begun to get inquiries from a number of new organizations outside of the circles that I generally travel in, because someone from some organization that I've worked with recommends me. I got 2 house concerts recently that paid very well, that came completely from collaborative networking. People who came to see me realized that they could bring an audience that had nothing to do with the places that I play into their home because they're friends of theirs. They share not only values, but also work-related activism. And they thought, well, these people are not going to go to the venues that I play, but they could bring them into their home. Another organization contacted me, and I have yet to have, I'm going to have a conversation with the guy next week. And they're screening a film this Sunday and wanted me to come and be on a panel. Well, I did a performance in the theater where they're screening that, and that was like 4 years ago. And as they were screening this, looking for people for the panel, someone mentioned me because I had done a program on being related to a Confederate general, and I was there with my cousin, who is my white relations from that union. So you just never know. And I wanted to also say, it's very important to measure or try to get a measure of your impact, but it's also important to remember constantly that sometimes your impact can't be measured. And I constantly get reminded of that. Down the road somewhere, something will happen because I'm doing the work because I believe I should be doing the work. And so that means that under certain circumstances, you are going to do things either for less money or no money, or in the hopes that doing the right thing will pay off. Now, you can't pay the rent on that. I understand that. But the fact of the matter is, the folks in the civil rights movement knew they weren't going to win every battle. They knew that singing, marching, all of those things, they would get some of what they hoped for and a lot of what they didn't. But they did the work, and their message to us was, do what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it, without thinking of what the outcome is, because the outcome actually may be out of your control and it may be greater than you think. So you have to also balance all of those things. I hear a lot of people these days saying, feeling the devastation of that, and that becomes an issue of self-care and community support.
Mhm.
Some days we're going to have down days where we think we're not making a difference, but you don't know that. So do the work anyway.
I really appreciate that, Reggie, that realization that being on the right side of history, is not going to guarantee that history is going to, that the story, that you get to write the story, um, the outcome is still out of our hands. So doing the work for the value of the work is so paramount. Sadie, I wanted to ask you a question, just as, from one artist to another in this time, what are you doing to identify time management is so hard, right? When you wear a lot of hats. So what are you doing to identify which part of these social issues are important enough to take your precious time, and allocate it toward working for a change in that area? What are your thoughts on that?
Wow, that's an interesting question. I just moved to Minneapolis like 2 weeks ago. So recently my time has been entirely just moving and trying to go to as many events as possible and meet the people that live here and learn about the community and all of the organizing and things that are already going on. And so in a way, and I think I partially moved here because it seemed like there was so much social organizing already happening, both for political causes, but also just around creativity and just anti-capitalist ideas that I vibe with. And I thought it would be fun to live here. So in some ways, I think it's kind of hard. I haven't been specifically dedicating time to any one cause, but I do think if I take a step back and be like, okay, well, the whole reason, I moved here for a reason, because I wanted to live more into creativity and into community and into things that I saw already happening here. So in that way, I'm spending all of my time
Right. Building community and
yeah, or
Bert was
trying,
saying,
yeah.
and building those networks. Yeah. Yeah, that's super important to identify your people in the new place where you're living. We had a comment from Carolyn saying relocalizing is great, but obviously there are communities that are better able to support the arts than others. And certainly rural areas are going to suffer the most. Are there efforts going to help on a regional basis? And what is FAI doing? And I know that FAI currently is, just from what they've put out publicly, we know that they are also being affected by a huge withdraw of, or retraction, what's the right word, of a $50,000 grant that they were to be awarded. So I think on their international level, that's what they are working on right now, is that big picture stuff. The regions, farms, and the other regional organizations, I think we have some really great, by the way, regional leadership right now. And I think that we're all very interested in, supporting our membership as much as we can. But you make a good point that, rural areas, I live in a rural area, and my organization, I host a concert series, and my organization was founded with NEA money through the state of Kansas. And that money is not probably going to be there again. And so my community has a local foundation, the community foundation, that fundraising is possible through. So, I think we have to be the change, the culture that we want to see. We have to be the change that we want to see, and maybe identifying what your rural area, what your local community has and doesn't have is a good inroad to knowing what work needs to be done in the community.
I think also, like, going along with that, I lived in Goshen, Indiana, which is a town of like 30,000. So it's not totally rural, but it is definitely in Indiana, and so it's not like a metropolitan area. And I think it's cool to think about like the places where there may already be networks of people who are meeting up, whether that's in churches or whether that's like around a soup kitchen or whether that's around like just, and obviously like there are going to be less of those if it's in a place where there's just not as many people, but trying to make groups with people that are aligned, and then also like, and show up, try to have as much continuity as you can with that. And then if it is with people that already have some kind of place of meeting, I think about this in terms of like house shows or like some kind of DIY show, that it's like, if you're gonna go to a venue, and it's gonna, people are more likely, and you don't know anybody, they're more likely to come out if it's a place where they're already used to going. And if the promoter is somebody who's really good at, who's really involved in that community and really good at rallying people together. But I don't think that that's just for shows. Like, I think that that could be applicable for any kind of like bringing people together thing, to be like, okay, like, is there a group of people that normally go, like maybe there's one brewery in town, and like, could you start like a meetup for whatever kind of thing you're trying to do? And obviously this is a little less like financial, it's more just community, like, but not even just community, like community building is the most important thing I think you can do. So but yeah,
Well, and I think, go ahead. Liz, go ahead.
Well, I think also something that so just after I got this NAA notice, I visited with a lot of people in New York City just last week, and people are really interested in what the creative, just like the question you asked, Alexa, people really want to understand how creatives are doing and how they can be supportive. Like, there's a real sense of like, so just what we're all saying, sort of not backing down, finding those resources. Maybe it's a hybrid. Maybe it's, I wonder where you do go to get a kind of an inventory, kind of a creative inventory of what is in your backyard. I mean, is there, where would people go? I don't have that answer, but I would think just to your point, Sadie, sort of finding those like-minded people and sort of showing up and recognizing that people are going to want to listen to you. People want, I mean, they were asking me, what are our artists saying? What are they doing? What are the projects they're working on? How can, they really want to have an understanding that the creative economy and the creative kind of world is still continuing. So yeah, so there is a lot of possibility in relocalizing, right? And sort of finding these kind of grassroots groups that you do align with. So I don't know. I mean, where would somebody go if they wanted to kind of, one of the exercises we do, I don't know if we did it with you, Alexa, is kind of a stakeholder map, which sounds all formal, but it's basically like, here I am, here are my values, or here's my issue, and what are the intersecting kind of rings right around that issue. And it could be a church, just what you're saying, Sadie, it could be a church, it could be a soup kitchen, it could be a local high school, it could be a rec center, it could be a nature conservancy, like, what are the folks that are around so even doing that kind of exercise right now, what are the cultural assets of my community? What are the natural assets of my community?
I think when you start looking at that too, and like Sadie was saying, it doesn't always have to be, these aren't political groups. These aren't necessarily groups that are aligned one way or the other politically. And I think that when you get down to that local level, you can sometimes build coalitions with unlikely allies, right?
100%.
Reggie, did you have something that you were?
Yeah, this morning I went to the Arc here in Ann Arbor and enjoyed a program for fourth and fifth graders that Matt Watroba and Robert Jones were doing. Robert and Matt have been really amazing at finding funding sources for doing new programs. This program at the Arc that they've been doing is undefined, and I see Matt's on here. But this has been funded by somebody in the community, and they hold it at the Arc, which is one of the major music listening rooms in America. The Arc thought it was a great idea. They bring the school kids in. This used to happen a lot more. It used to happen at Detroit Institute of Arts and all these places, theaters around the country. A lot of their budgets got cut, or schools find it difficult to get buses. But it's still possible to do. My friend Sunny Oaks in Middleburg, New York, works through the library, and she brings in musicians, who are traveling through year after year after year, a number of concerts. It's a community event, and the people who show up, you wouldn't expect that from their political view or how they act in the community that they would come in and enjoy a folk show, but they do, and they enjoy that atmosphere, and they come back. So I think that's one of the things. Matt has also been starting community sings, all around the country. So libraries are a really, really great resource, or community centers. So we have to kind of look and see who is willing to open their space, or contribute some money to starting a little concert series.
Well, I just want to add to that. If you're able to solve a problem that library has, that community space, like, think of it from their perspective, right? Sort of what are they struggling with, and how can you, based on the little coalition you have or your creative idea, solve that problem? It's just a slightly different way of looking at it, and it will bring return to you, because now you're acting, you're sort of like, you're a partner, right, with them in addressing something that you both care about, but you've done your research around what that organization needs to achieve. And and in many cases, as you said, Reggie, in many cases, the money, if you're doing that kind of thinking, they'll figure out how to get the money, because they can make the case.
Right.
They can say, this artist is going to come in, they're going to help me solve this problem. We all care about this problem, and the money will be there. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, I want to I just acknowledge, like, this keeps coming back to community, right? And keeps coming back to the fact that we cannot do this work alone, nor should we. And that our resources are really all found among us, right? And with each other. I want to read a couple of comments, and then we'll have some closing thoughts as we are coming up on the 5-minute mark. But Laura comments that she lives in an area. I live in an area where there are less than 8,000 in the whole county. I can relate. Our county seat, population 500, hosts a summer concert series that is funded by community support and a local 501c3. The community is very enthusiastic in their support of their number of music events, open mic, porch fest, music at the art fair, etc. People of very different political persuasions come together and listen and sing music together every week all summer long, and it is powerful. And I think that gosh, we should put our phones down and do that more, right? Because we can get so wrapped up in this idea that we are so divided when we go into our communities. That doesn't always seem to be very apparent. So very interesting. Mark Smith commented county arts councils, which that is county, city arts councils. There are also, I keep seeing a lot of city kind of coalition building with arts organizations that are doing new things with, city money that maybe wouldn't be as reliant on NEA funds. Christoph says it should be noted that the canceling of the grants you're referring to is likely illegal, including the 5 days to appeal. Perhaps FAI could bring together those impacted and support the various ways organizations and artists can push back against what are often illegal cutbacks the federal government are enacting. And I think you make a very good point there. I'm not really sure at this stage what difference that will make. But I think that yes, contacting. I don't want to speak. I'm not really speaking for them because I think this is the message that your FAI leadership does want to hear from you, and may, if you're interested in doing that kind of work of pushing back, of building a resistance toward that they might welcome your volunteering to do that.
I would also just say that Americans for the Arts has been very active. Like they were the ones that pulled together that webinar within days of getting this notice. So they also have they're bringing a lot of legal perspective on this, and so they might have some resources. Americans for the Arts. I don't know their URL, but yeah.
Americans
for the Arts. I thought they were a federally funded organization, but I guess they're more independent than realized. So yeah.
All right, another thought, and then we're going to have some closing thoughts. Corky wrote, I'm soft launching a project called Jingles for Democracy. That sounds fun. You can find it at jinglesfordemocracy.com. Been around for 60 years as an international performer and recording artist. I also founded the Chicago, Illinois office of Common Cause in 2011, and I'm still on the board. This project is based on kindness and humanity, but leads to the protection of democracy. So please check out Jingles for Democracy. They need all kind of help. P.S. It's a musical message, but with effective action as its culmination. And my question is, how can I connect to receive some wisdom about this from your group? And we'll get to that in just a second after I read this final comment. I think it's the last one. I need to read through again. We need this century's Phil Oaks and have to remember the NYC gang did a lot of couch surfing, and those are the ones that need support. It's been a while since I did any couch surfing. I like my memory foam mattress in my van. Thank you very much. But yes, there are a lot of folks on the road who really need that support. God bless house concerts for sure, and the cash economy, because wow, I just had an experience in Lawrence, Kansas this weekend with a really incredible group, and it just came out of nowhere, and the majority of the people in that room had no idea who I was, and it just was a really beautiful, beautiful night. So let me just check. How can I connect? I think is a question that we can kind of wrap up on. We have many ways that I just want to mention as far as our farm Facebook group is somewhat active, but I think if you were to post questions to this community in that group, also bringing up our upcoming events for virtual connections. We do have tomorrow night a peer gathering for the concert presenters. So if you are a venue presenter, tomorrow evening, that is your farm peer group. You do not have to be in our region to participate, you just need to be a presenter. Also, Thursday is our community peer group. So real quickly, if we can go around, we just have 2 minutes or something, but if you want to offer ways to contact you, Sadie, would you start just with letting people know how to find you online?
Yeah, sure. You can email me at sadiebgz@gmail.com or go to my website, Sadie Gustafson-Zook, no-.com. Or I'm on social media. My name is the same, Sadie Gustafson-Zook, at all of those places.
Thank you so much, Liz.
Great. It's Liz, L-I-Z-S like Sam, at musictolife.org. And it's musictolife.org. And we're on various, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. We have an amazing YouTube channel with some great videos about shows that we've done. I think both, actually, you and Reggie have been on Brave True Brewers at various times, Alexa. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that.
Reggie?
I'm at reggerino42@gmail. And my website is reggieharrismusic.com. And I'm not hard to find. On Facebook, I pop up a lot. I'm also on Blue Sky.
Very good. We had a late edition of a notice about a summer gathering in Massachusetts, I believe. Storm, would you post that to our Facebook group so everyone can see that? I'm Elexa Dawson. Thank you so much to you three for being here, and to all of our audience. Thank you to Annie Capps for running our tech and for getting us all organized here. Thank you to the farm board members who are here and everyone who, okay, Storm, you're not on Facebook. I will copy and paste it. Thank you so much. To everyone who's here, just a little quick reminder, our registration for the conference in Lisle, Illinois is open right now. And I think our early bird pricing is still even on. Also, our official showcase applications are open, and we would love to see your application come in. So go to farmfolk.org, sign up for our newsletter if you are not already on it. And thank you so much for joining us today. We will see you very soon.
Thanks, everybody.